Welcome back, everybody, to conversation number 55 on the TLC. Today, we're going to be chatting with Emma Stratton of Punchy, and she's going to be sharing with us a little talk that I had the great opportunity of hearing at CXL Live about the power of our language and the messaging that we use on our website. Emma is an expert in positioning and messaging for B2B companies in particular. And at Punchy, she really helps product marketers and leadership teams translate their products, their technology, the way that they speak to their customers into a really compelling storytelling that resonates with buyers. She really struck me in her talk at CXL Live with how we really need to change the way we are talking to our customers and kind of rip out a lot of the jargon, and not just the way we talk to our customers, but maybe the way that we speak to ourselves internally and to each other. So I really wanted to bring her to TLC because I saw immediately the connections with the things that we do with testing. So she also teaches marketing teams how to write stronger messaging and all that stuff. I put the link there. I want you guys to go check it out because Punchy is pretty cool. And if anybody else is a podcast addict, check out Emma's Adventures in Messaging podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify. All right, let me stop share and pass it over to you, and we'll get started right away.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for introducing me so well. I'm terrible at introducing myself, so I appreciate you covering everything. All right, let me just get set here. And just, can everyone see the non-normal slides? Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending and listening to this talk during this busy kind of end of year. Super psyched to just be here with all of you. And I hope you enjoy this talk about messaging and how you can really grow with it. So Kelly, you gave that awesome kind of intro to what I do now. But, the fact that I'm even in B2B marketing is just like a complete accident. Just true story. I never meant to get into B2B at all. It was never, ever part of my plan. Over a decade ago, I was actually working at a B2C branding agency in the UK. So I was all about products, right? I wrote brand messaging that got consumers to form emotional connections with packaged goods on the shelf. So I wrote emotional brand messaging for the UK's #1 toilet paper, for the UK's #1 sausage. I even did it for the UK's #1 dildo. That's right, the rampant rabbit on the right, #1 best-selling sex toy. They needed messaging as well. It was a ton of fun, and I probably would still be doing that now if I hadn't decided to move back to the United States. And at the time, I had a baby, and my #1 thing was like, I just need a job close to where I'm living. So I accepted a job as creative director, head of content at a B2B marketing agency. And at the time, I thought very naively that B2B and B2C were basically the same thing. I was like, we're marketing products to people, right? So you can imagine my surprise when I went from writing about dildos to writing about enterprise data management. Dun, dun, dun. It was like baptism by fire. My first client at this agency was an enterprise data management software. And back then, I didn't even really know what that meant. I was like, oh, shoot, let me get up to speed with this client here. So I started reading all of their messaging, all of their materials. And so it's really interesting that I can remember the very first moment I read B2B messaging for a software company, like in my life. And this is actually an excerpt from that messaging at the time. Look at this. Individual modules share a common set of backend services so they effortlessly talk to one another, blah, blah, blah. Like, I remember reading this and I had two thoughts. My first thought, seriously, was, fuck, I have blown up my career. I made a huge mistake. Like, what am I doing? I am so not cut out for this. And the second thought I had was, damn, B2B buyers are nothing like B2C buyers. They're like friggin' brainiacs if they understand this stuff. And I thought, I'm screwed. I don't know what I've just done. So I was kind of in a swirl for about a week until I met the CMO of said enterprise data management company. And he's like, Emma, no, messaging is our biggest problem. He's like, we actually have a very innovative platform. We are actually super different from competitors. Gartner loves us. We cannot message it. We don't know how to tell that story to people. We can't convey the value. And it's really messing with our marketing campaigns, our sales cycle is too long. Our salespeople don't even know what we're doing. It's really affecting our growth. And it was interesting because that first experience really taught me a huge lesson that I've carried with me ever since. And that is, in B2B tech especially, messaging has the power to make a good product look bad. A lot of people think I got a great product. Messaging is just icing on the cake, not that important. But actually, messaging has the power to make a great product look bad if it's not on point. It was happening with that client back then, and I continue to see it happening every day in B2B tech especially. So let's talk about weak messaging versus strong messaging. So weak messaging is just hard to understand, doesn't really show people why they should care or be interested or even give a passing thought about your solution. So in the case of this client, it was really wreaking havoc in their marketing and sales cycle. So it just made that harder. It was making them sound like everyone else. They just were saying all the same stuff. And even though they had true differentiation, no one understood that. And finally, their complicated technical messaging was actually making people think that it must be a complicated product to use. So messaging builds perception. And when you have complex scientific messaging, people think your product's going to be too hard to use. And so they avoid it. That happens all the time. So that was what was happening with the client. Now, on the flip side, strong messaging can make any product look good. A good one, a bad one, a mediocre one, it can make it look good. When you have that strong message and you're conveying that value, it's easier to market, right? Your campaigns do better. Sales cycle goes quicker, goes smoother. You will stand out from the competitors, right? Because a lot of people are struggling with messaging. And it will help you build a winning perception in the market. So something that clients tell me again and again, I hear all the time, they tell me, Emma, we have this competitor, the product isn't as good, but they tell a better story than us and they're beating us. And that is really the power of story, the power of messaging. And it's really why I'm here chatting with you all today. I want you to know that right now, your messaging is either driving the growth of your company or slowing it down. There really isn't an in-between. Some people say to me like, Emma, our messaging isn't amazing, but it's not hurting us. But I disagree, right? If there's an opportunity to be more clear, more compelling about the value that you offer people, there's opportunity there that could be seized. And so since that first client, it really has become one of my core missions to help B2B tech companies, software companies drive growth with messaging. So in the past 6 years since I founded Punchy, I've worked with probably more than 65 high growth B2B tech companies like Miro, Loom, Outreach, Oracle, lots of companies. And I've become obsessed with it, right? Like, why is this so hard, right? And I've really kind of cracked the code on messaging and why it is so hard for a lot of companies. And that's because messaging is really not about the words. It's not about cool words, cool headlines. It is about bridging the gap between a cold, non-living, unfeeling piece of technology and a warm, living, breathing, feeling human, right? That is what messaging is here to do. It is really here to bridge the gap between a technology and a person. They live in separate worlds. We got to bring them together. But the problem is most messaging just never crosses that gap, right? It either stays talking about the tech or it plunges to a death in the middle and never lands on the human, right? And so we have this situation where B2B companies are literally screaming into the void about their technology, about their features, how robust it is, market leading, innovative, blah, blah, blah. It's not landing on human ears. I really believe that if companies really just redirected that energy from talking about how great their tech is to closing that gap between the technology and their customers' needs and their desires and goals, they would experience more growth. I actually know this is true because this is all I do with companies, right? I work with cybersecurity companies, sales companies, biotech companies, all these people who really struggle with making that leap. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. I'm going to share 3 techniques that I think are really most important to strengthening your message, closing that gap between technology and a buyer. These are the same techniques I use with clients. They're also kind of my favorite ones to teach folks in my courses. So the first one is around giving context. The second is around making it compelling. And finally, making things clear. So let's dive into the first one. about giving people context so they get it fast. So here's the thing, when you have a complex product, it is way easier to just dive into the weeds, talk about how it works under the hood, rather than give a very concise statement of the value. But this creates a situation where people need a friggin' PhD in engineering or data science or what have you to understand how your products might actually help them. I worked with a company, a data analytics company, and the CRO said to me, he's like, Emma, right now, it's like people aren't smart enough to know they should buy our software. And that is a problem. That's seriously going to affect the size of your market if you really are only speaking to kind of the smartest technical brains in the world. Now, this happens because it really is a natural human reflex to try and explain a complicated thing. We think, if I just explain to you how this works, maybe you will understand this really complicated thing. But this explaining just really makes life harder for your reader. So rather than explaining how the tech works, you want to focus on translating the tech into what it could mean to your audience, right? So what could this mean to you? That is a lot easier to grasp. So let me give you an example here. One of the things I tell people to do again and again and again is put your solution in the context of your customer's life. Translate it into what it would look like from their perspective. So give a concrete example about how it might show up, a benefit or the value might show up in their day-to-day life. Give a really concrete example that they can recognize. So I want to give an example here around real-time visibility, just because that's a phrase that people use a lot. People will explain, oh, it's going to give you real-time visibility, as if that kind of says it all. But imagine we've got a software that is for a finance professional. They may have like a very surface understanding as to what real-time visibility is, but it's not really going to like get them. They're not going to be like, ooh, I really need that. They'll just be like, okay, I don't really, that's kind of technical. So if we want to translate this idea of real-time visibility into the context of a finance professional's life, what does real-time visibility mean? What will it actually look like in their experience? What will they be able to do? So one way of translating real-time visibility could simply be this ability to get an instant view across your financials, right? Real-time visibility means you can see everything right there. It's something you can actually picture in your mind. You can picture getting this idea of getting an instant view across your financials a lot better than you can imagine what real-time visibility looks like. So putting it in the context of a customer's life just makes it easier to grasp and, quite frankly, more interesting for them. So an example of, when I did this with a client, I worked with, this really cool machine learning company working in the industrial space. And here's the thing, the more visionary, the more innovative, the more new your product or your technology is, the more you have to lean on this concept of context. Context becomes critical to help people understand like really new things. Otherwise, they'll just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So this industrial machine learning company we worked with, they helped factories kind of optimize production in real time. Right, real time. But their audience were floor engineers who had been doing this for 30 years with spreadsheets and pencil and paper and didn't really understand what machine learning was. So we couldn't just go in there guns blazing talking about the algorithm and the models, right? We had to show them what this could look like in the context of their day-to-day job. And really, that was the ability to predict a problem and fixing it before anything went wrong. And that was really something they could not do without machine learning, right? But it was very tangible. So this idea of preventing problems before they start, being able to kind of see what a result looks like and being able to make decisions without slowing you down. This is machine learning in the context of a floor engineer's life. And you'll see we didn't mention machine learning anywhere, right? We really just translated what it means to them. And this really helped this startup expand their market, talk to more customers, etc. So once you've given that context and you've translated your technology for people, now you want to make it compelling. You want to get them interested. You want to draw them in. And, here's what we're dealing with, right? This is what you're dealing with. This is what every person is really thinking right now. They just don't care. They do not care about your tech. They don't care. Even the super technical ones who are kind of looking, who need your solution, they don't care. They do not care about your technology. What they care about is they care about themselves, just like you and me. Like I just care about myself, right? I'm always thinking about my own stuff. I'm thinking about things I want to do, my pains, my problems, my challenges. I'm daydreaming about the gains I'd like to make, the desires, those goals, those things I'd like to do. So pains and gains, these are the things that people are walking around thinking about, caring about all day. So you can use this to your advantage, right? Rather than trying to explain everything, you just want to hit your message to the things your customer are already thinking about, those pains and gains that they're really motivated to solve. Kind of lets you align your solution with that natural momentum that's already happening in their minds. It's a lot easier to hitch a ride with things they already care about than trying to just convince someone to suddenly care about your AI-powered automation. And this is just a lot easier. So there's two specific ways you can really do that. That is in your messaging, calling out a specific pain that you can help them solve, or highlighting a specific gain that they want that you can help them achieve. Just getting really specific. So your messaging should always be doing one of those two things, talking about the pain or the gain. Otherwise, you're kind of just, you're writing a blog post, right? Or you're writing prose. You want to keep things very focused. So here is an example with an IT ops platform I worked with last year. And I want to give you this example because it's a super technical platform and they have a super technical IT buyer. Just in case some of you are thinking, like, this doesn't apply to my field because we're like uber technical. Like this does apply to everyone. So, these IT buyers, they actually were super passionate about their pains and gains. I got on the phone with them. And, their dreams were having all of their endpoints kind of patched and secured so that, they weren't at risk for some terrible attack at the enterprise, right? That was their dream. It was very simple, but they had so much pain. And all of that pain came from the crappy legacy tools that they were forced to use that were really clunky, took forever, tons of manual tasks. I remember one of the customers like, God, it's awful. It's like you have to be a NASA engineer to just understand the drop downs. I hate it. They were just so clear about the pain they were in. And so we just connected to those very strong pains and gains. So this is a view of the top of the homepage at the time. You'll see that value proposition at the very top, that headline speaks to that gain, right? Which it may not look like much, but in their field, this is sort of like an impossible thing to promise, right? So it was like this thing they hope to achieve. And then in the subhead there, we kind of like touched on that pain about those clunky legacy tools and those manual tasks. It wouldn't be great if you could automate those away. So it was just really connected to them. And it really helped this company stand out in their space. I think like 2 quarters later, they were quadrupled their growth, and they're still kind of running with this messaging because it's so focused on the customer, and the customer doesn't change. And so it's really given them stability, as kind of everything else is so volatile. By being very close to your customer gives you an authenticity and a stability that is, refreshing. So once you give them the context, you've made it compelling, you don't want to fall at the last hurdle. You want to make sure it's crystal clear so people aren't confused. And here's where the jargon comes in. I mean, jargon is the worst. Like, raise your hand if you hate jargon. Like, I'm pretty sure we all hate jargon. I don't think anyone likes jargon, and yet it is everywhere. We still write it. It still gets in all of those things we write. I don't know why, but jargon is really that #1 clarity killer, especially in B2B. And jargon is like empty calories. Like, it feels kind of good at first. Like, oh yeah, this sounds cool. And you put it in there, but it just bloats your messaging. And it really just deadens the impact, right? So there's a couple kinds of jargon. I don't really see all jargon as the same. I think you've got that high level business jargon, like the synergy and the leverage, those types of words. And those you can always get rid of those. I think we all can agree they suck. But there's another type of jargon, which is, I call it the marketing hype buzzword. So like the best in class or the frictionless, robust, right? Those types of language. These are hard, right? You see your peers using them and you feel like you should be using them because everyone else is. This can be a really hard one to walk away from because a lot of people think that type of language makes it look like you have a powerful, innovative technology, but it doesn't. It just makes you sound like everyone else. And then there's a third type of jargon, which I think is kind of the most dangerous. I call it the internal lingo, and it's the stuff that teams make up, like internally, internal language, when teams create their own echo chamber and they just start talking about aspects of the product. They make up funny words and then they start repeating it and think that's validation. And then they go out to the market and use it and it just flops. I'm a consultant, so I meet a lot of this with different teams. This is one that a team came up with. He was like, oh, it was like the head of product. He was like, oh yeah, we call it carrot-based notifications. And at first I was like, I feel dumb. Like, I don't know, is this like a developer thing? And I kind of sheepishly was like, what does this mean? And he's like, oh, it's just this phrase I'm kind of coming up with, what do you think? And I just thought, I think we need to stop using this phrase. This is something to do with APIs. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but it really stuck in my mind how kind of off the mark we get carried away trying to make up words for things. And this is really why jargon is a problem. You're basically speaking a different language to your customer. You're making your technology inaccessible to people. So when I talk about jargon and when I'm teaching and I talk to people about jargon, people like feel shame. Marketers are like, oh my God, Emma, I'm so embarrassed. Like, that is a bit jargony what I just wrote, right? And I just want to say, no, don't feel shame. Like, we all do it. Like, I have definitely written seamless at some point. I mean, it just comes out. It's everywhere. Everyone does it. So, it's important to just realize that jargon is just like weeds. It just gets in there. It's pervasive, even on your best intentions. So just be on the lookout. Always go back and just think, all right, does everyone know what I'm talking about here, or is this a bit jargony? And when you come up against like something that's a bit jargony, here's what you can do. Just get clear. Just reread the jargony thing and think, okay, what am I trying to say here? What does this actually mean in terms of value to my customer? What is the benefit of this to them? So here is a before and after example. On the left, we've got that kind of jargony, like, ta-da, look how great this product is, unleash the power, best of breed. And there's so much messaging out here that just sounds like this. But what does it actually mean, right? What is the best of breed multi-generational network infrastructure? Like, why should I care about that? It's not obvious. So the after example, just translate that to value. What does that actually mean? And what it means is now you can kind of benefit from 5G while not having to trash the 3G and 4G investments that you've already made in your infrastructure. That's what it means. Now, the after example, admittedly, doesn't have like the razzle dazzle of unleash the power of, but it has clarity and it has clear value. And that is what helps people. That is much more important. You can actually read that and think, okay, maybe I want to learn more about this product. It's clear. So here's another example of a company I worked with earlier this year called People AI. They're a really smart, awesome company in the revenue intelligence space. And they really are, changing the way people think about revenue intelligence and changing the way people are able to sell into enterprises. But they were really struggling to convey that. And so this headline, they were really kind of leaning in on those buzzwords like we're redefining this or we're transforming that. And again, it sounds good, but it's not saying anything. When you say you're redefining something or transforming something, you're putting the onus of what that means onto the reader. Like, it's on them to picture what redefined revenue intelligence looks like or what a transforming growth means. And they're just not going to do that, right? So people just gloss over this and keep walking. It sounds good, but it just doesn't mean anything. So we had to kind of really get specific about the value of what they did and what was the unique value of how they did what they did. And we ended up with this headline here where it was about the ability to engage the right people inside the right accounts. That was the hook that we went to. It was sort of the impossible thing with enterprise sales motion. And again, it doesn't have the razzle dazzle of transform and redefine, but it has clarity. And this was the type of message that would make kind of their buyers' eyes light up, like, oh, really? I could do that. So we went forward with this. When they kind of launched their new messaging, they put it in front of Forrester analysts who, they've been working closely with for years. And the analyst was like, finally, you're finally starting to message like what actually makes you guys so good. You struggled with it for so long. And so they're really kind of rocking it with this messaging. And quite frankly, it's just a big relief to their organization to finally have just a clear, simple way to talk about what they do. So, the takeaway here really is whenever you write anything, whether it's top level messaging, campaign, landing page, whatever, take a look at it and just ask yourself, have I bridged that gap between the product and the person I'm trying to reach? Have I made it clear? Is it compelling? Does it map to the things that they care about? Does it have the context, right? I always keep that in mind. You can never go too far with these three techniques. You can only get closer to the customer. And the more you do that, the more you're really going to stand out in the space and hopefully gonna boost those marketing campaigns and drive that growth. So these are the three things. I hope it's been helpful. If you kind of enjoyed this, I do a weekly newsletter called That's Punchy, where I do stuff like this, the before and after examples, the tidbits, the techniques. If you're interested, definitely pop up to that URL and join. I also do trainings and workshops and all that good stuff. So if you like nerding out on messaging, definitely stay connected. And thank you for listening.
Awesome. So we have some questions coming in. Thank you, Emma. Yes. So first question, Mr. Tim Wilson asks, how do you know, because you mentioned a couple of times that the new messaging that came through and they finally got there and they really were enjoying the messages. How do you know that you've gotten there with the new messages?
Yeah. So my process always stems from customer research, interviews. So where I'm asking around the pains, the gains, the unique value, how they describe their challenges, et cetera. And so I build messaging off of that customer insight. So that's how I form the hierarchy. That's how I know what to do. So when I bring teams on that journey, they can see that connection between here's what customers said, here's what's most on their mind, here's how we are answering that. But still, anytime you are kind of rolling out new messaging, there's always going to be a bit of unknown. Like there's always a bit of, let's just see how this lands. And when I work with folks, they grab the messaging right away and they just start either putting it in front of customers that they have relationships with. Sales folks will start kind of using language in calls right away. And yeah, new prospect calls, and people start getting like a intuitive sense whether it's landing or not. But if you start with the customer, it's not going to flop, right? It's really, I think, the chances of it going well are very high.
So for those of you on the TLC, you can see why I wanted to bring Emma to the TLC, because we immediately see, ooh, this is an opportunity for testing, because we want to take your messages before and after, and we want to put them together in A/B test and be able to measure the impact of the changes of your messages, because we can clearly see that they're clearly going to be better, but we could actually measure the lift and size it, right? Yeah, that's exactly right.
Thumbs up, yes.
Yeah, you could put that messaging on there and start talking about the size of that. So Enrique actually asked, have you tested before and after messages? This is really awesome stuff. Reminds me of elevator pitches for startups. Focus clearly on the business value. So really great stuff. Which I see Nate asking questions. So let me go to his question first. But curious, Emma, if you've had any thoughts on whether it makes sense to think about a different messaging strategy for businesses that are just looking first stage before buying versus actively doing a vendor evaluation. So in the second stage, so further in their consideration cycle.
Yeah. So my work is, I focus on top level kind of core positioning for the company or for at the platform level. So kind of persona, audience specific type of things flow from that. So I can only speak from that point of view. And there we have to make a decision, a strategic decision with the company. Yes, there's different maturity. It's always a mixed bag of like technical sophistication, buyer awareness, all those types of things. And so what I like to sway towards kind of the majority prospects that are coming to them that they're winning. So who are we most commonly seeing on those prospect calls? And does this represent, the people we need for our growth goals? And then I will make a decision and kind of speak to that level of awareness at the highest level, if that makes sense. Of course, if you're doing kind of focus campaigns for different, for those different awareness stages, I would absolutely adjust the messaging for awareness if you're doing like specific campaigns. Again, that's not my expertise, but yes, if it is that type of thing, absolutely, I would shift the message, but use the same principles, right? So you're really just there, the way they see things will be different from the others. So for example, people who are maybe just looking, maybe they're not awake to the actual pain, or maybe they know they have the pain, but they don't really know that there's a solution out there. So you need to speak to that. Whereas the people who are actively looking for a solution and they know what they're looking for, then your message needs to be focused more on what makes us different, why us versus the other options out there. So it will really sway your message depending on that awareness. But at the highest level, my clients, I force them to make a decision and kind of sway towards that awareness stage.
And Robert asked, how do you develop, refine, and validate new messaging hits with how new messaging hits with the customers?
How do I like refine it based on
and validate that it actually hits with customers?
Yeah. So I know I don't do hardcore testing or valid like numbers, data driven. I don't. It's funny, in the beginning of my career, when I was working with younger startups, they were always like, how do you validate this? And they were very like, I want like data. And I always just said like, sorry, I don't do that. That's not what I do. I told them, we can rewrite your homepage, you can A/B test value proposition, but I can't like launch a pay-per-click, and I can't do that. That's outside of my wheelhouse. It's interesting now that I specialize really working with later stage companies, Series D, Series C, and their problem is more kind of around, differentiation, or how do we kind of take all these different products and put it under this umbrella? And people don't ask me about that kind of sort of data-driven validation anymore. It's interesting. They don't ask. So like I said, mine is the kind of validation people look for. For me, it's like they run it by analysts, always. They run it by existing customers. They'll kind of show it, what do you think? And then they will just start rolling with it in prospect sales conversations. So it is really that more of like, you get a feel like, yep, this is landing. This is great. But I don't get into the kind of granular, use this word versus that word type of thing. That would be up to their marketing team as they start executing on that messaging.
It's funny, I'm a little envious because in the experiment world, we're always asked to, show our work and prove our value and our ROI of our programs. But in the research world, nobody ever asks them to prove the value of the work they do, because, the fact that they can come forward and say, look at everything I've learned, and everybody's like, yeah, that work was valuable. But in the experimentation world, they're like, how much money did you make us?
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, that you definitely have the challenging part, right?
and they're both research.
Yeah.
So different forms of research and different. But
people love the numbers, though. I mean, people love, because I came from consumer branding. I've always been like, nope, I can't give you ROI on that. I just can't, And so I've just kind of rocked that message moving forward. That it's because I'm not doing like direct response copywriting. I'm not doing conversion rate optimization. I'm not. but I'm doing the strategic, what is the message? What's the market positioning? What's all that all that will stem from. So maybe I did that on purpose. I'm not a numbers person. I'd be terrible.
Well, anybody else have any questions we can ask of Emma before we let her go?
Hi, it's Melissa. I wonder, you said you started in consumer, then you moved to B2B. If you were to bring this back to the consumer, have you thought about how you would do that?
If
you were to bring this approach back to B2C, because I totally see where this would add value. Can you talk about how you might do that, or how a person might do that?
It's the same principles. I was actually just talking about this because a B2C company just reached out about training and asked if it would be relevant for them, knowing that I kind of do B2B. And it's all relevant. It's all the same stuff. I just feel like you have more freedom in B2C. The thing, a lot of companies I work with have a B2C arm as well, right? They sell to enterprises, but they sell to individuals. So to me, B2C is just, you're speaking closely to one person. But I believe that any writing should be as if you're writing to just one person. So all of this applies to B2C. Like, it really does. I was in hardcore consumer packaged goods world. So a lot of it there was about attitude and personality and tone, to give a personality to a brand. So it was very heavy on tone. But if we're talking kind of B2C in, kind of like the technology space, it all does apply. It still just speak very closely to one person, to that customer, and kind of see things from their perspective.
Thank you.
Last call for questions. While I pull up the calendar and remind everybody for our next talk. Going once. All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Emma. Enjoyed it just as much this time, if not more. I was able to focus a lot more, not walking around on a rooftop. It was really great, just like last time. Really, really appreciate it. And then I also liked, I kind of had my experimentation hat on a little bit more this time. So really appreciate you coming back and sharing the talk with us. Hope you engage over, kind of join in the TLC Slack and join the conversations that we have over there. And for my TLCers, next month, January 13th, June Dershowitz is going to be joining us. She's going to be chatting with us about convincing the C-suite that data is important. And I mean, maybe you've already convinced them, but now you want to help innovate with the data, because it's always a challenge and everything kind of gets stale. And so how can you really get everybody to do more interesting stuff? Everybody's got data and reporting and they're doing the dashboards, but everybody's kind of gotten bored with it, and you want to freshen everything's up. And so she actually presented this not at we were at one conference and she was at a conference right next door, and so we met up and she was telling me about this talk, and I was like, ooh, you want to do it again? And she was like, sure. So she's going to come and do it for us, and I'm very, very excited, because if you haven't heard one of June's talk, we're in for a treat. So it's going to be a really fantastic talk. She's even going to talk about a little bit about dealing with tech debt and all the different things that come up all the time in the experimentation world, more from the analyst side. So really fantastic opportunity for us. So this is, and if you don't know, June, this is like a graduate level course in dealing with data analytics. So this is kind of a pretty big talk for us. So please join and start thinking of questions that you want to ask of June, and we will do that June 13th. No, she's June. We'll do it January 13th, 1 p.m. Central. You guys translate that to your local time zones. And again, thank you so much, Emma. Really enjoyed it. And everybody have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you in the new year. Bye all. Thank you.